Hello, 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 and welcome to Fluff It, a podcast for furries by furries. My name is Felix.
And I'm Una.
And welcome everyone to our podcast.
Thanks to everyone who's tuning in this time and to everyone who was with us last time. We've had people listening from all kinds of locations: England, America, Hawaii, the Dominican Republic. And it's really exciting to hear so many people are tuning in and listening to the podcast, and hope that you all enjoy it.
Yeah, it's really crazy to just imagine that we're already having people from multiple continents tuning in. I'm fascinated by the fact that people from the Dominican Republic and Hawaii and even England, I know that you're from the United Kingdom, but I just never would have thought that people would be tuning in from all around for this.
Yes,
it's exciting.
It's amazing.
Now, what are we going to be talking about today, Uno?
So today we'll be discussing the topic of parents. And I know this is kind of a common subject to discuss for a lot of furries, but we'll be discussing parents' views on the fandom and how they should react to it.
And with that, we're going to be talking about our own experiences with our parents in the fandom. And then later, joining us are our own parents. And they're going to be joining our furry podcast. How exciting!
So yeah, this should definitely be a very interesting episode. And I really hope that everyone enjoys listening to this. Definitely going to be a fun one.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Yeah, now, why are we bringing up parents as furries? It's definitely a topic for me that I really think that the furry fandom needs to be talking a little bit more about, because there's just it's kind of almost a taboo topic in the furry fandom to be mentioning parents.
Yeah, it's definitely, like you said, it's definitely a kind of a taboo in a way, because a lot of furries will kind of either kind of keep it secretive, or not all obviously, but it seems to be a topic that really isn't discussed. Like a lot of parents either don't know anything about it, or they maybe have sort of a bad opinion of it, maybe false information, or and some just are perfectly fine and accept it, which is also really interesting, because I think as well, with them being a different generation to us, it's not really something that was necessarily around so much when they were younger. So it's really interesting to hear their thoughts on it, and just what they think, and their opinions.
Yeah, the furry fandom, for those, this is maybe some history, short little history lesson. The furry fandom kind of was created around in the late 1980s, so this is definitely still a fairly young fandom, and it has just recently really exploded, especially with the increase of social media and websites that you can share and talk with people around the world. It's crazy that I'm here in the southern United States and Uno's in the United Kingdom, and we're just talking like this.
Yeah.
But it's crazy, because from a lot of like furries I've heard, they are very intimidated by their parents. A lot have kept the furry thing very much under the rug, or if their parents do know, a lot of these furries don't really talk much about it. And it's crazy, because a lot of the people I do know very well in the fandom, it's almost kind of the opposite, where everyone does, or their parents do know about the furry fandom. And especially you and our parents are very much aware that we're both furries. And I would say in my case, I'm not entirely sure if this is common for everyone, but I have maybe very strange parents when it comes to the furry fandom, where they are extremely embracive of it.
Yeah, and I could definitely say the same thing for mine, because they really are very accepting of it, and were from day one, to be honest. And I also want to say, kind of, I suppose one of the reasons why we've chosen to do this topic today is just to kind of put it out there a bit more. And if there are any parents listening, or any furries who might want to have something to show their parents, as a way to sort of say, this is what it is, this is what it's all about, to kind of like debunk, if that's the right word, the kind of bad reputations of the fandom, and just to kind of put it in a better light and say, hey, this is like a hobby that a lot of people enjoy, and it's a fairly new thing, but a lot of people are into it, and it's a fun thing, and it's just a great thing to be into. So yeah, it's just to put it out there a bit more, really, I suppose, and make it less of a intimidating subject in a way.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I hope that what we are going to talk about today, especially when the parents come on and talk to us about the furry fandom, we hope that furries can feel maybe a little bit more comfortable sharing something like Uno just said to their parents, or for parents in general, because for I know there's a few viewers who are parents themselves, some brand new parents in the last 2 or so years, and it's always interesting when just you hear stories of when people come out as furries to their parents. And I hope that what we are going to share today with our parents maybe can comfort some parents about what the furry fandom is and debunk any negative stigmas that the furry fandom might have associated with it.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that's pretty much all I would want to mention in terms of the topic. I mean, it's really just to put it out there and let people know what it's all about, whether you're a furry who's afraid to talk to their parents about it, or whether you're a parent who has a furry kid. It really is, or even if you're just someone who just wants to listen to an interesting topic, it is certainly a very interesting topic within the fandom, I would say.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Now that we've talked about both of our experiences, we are now going to interview our parents. And to start off, I brought in my two parents now sitting next to me. And would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Hey, son. So I'm Terry, but my persona is Bogey, and happy to be here with you today, Felix
Thank
and
you.
Uno.
And I'm Sam, and Felix created my persona for me, and it's her name's Grace. And I'm also happy to be included today.
Thank you. So we have a few questions that we're both going to ask you. And our first question is, how should a parent react if their child does come out as a furry?
Well, so I guess I would argue with the premise of coming out. So saying that, hey, I really think that the world of furries is really cool, and I want to create a persona, to me isn't about coming out. It's just a part of who you are. And so when you as a young teen started drawing caricatures and different kinds of sketches and things like that, and where you exposed us to the world of furries, to us, I think it was just a natural extension of the things that you were interested in. I think the other thing too, and I don't know if this is unique to this southeastern United States or other places around the world, but and this just as well, son, as Grace and I do. But here in the Southeast, people love their college sports.
Mm-hmm.
Our college sports have mascots, and those mascots are, if you will, lovable, cartoonish characters who come to life in these mascot costumes. For me at the University of Alabama with Big Al, with your mom from Virginia Tech with the Hokie Bird, and then you growing up on the campus of Georgia Tech with us, with Buzz. And so to me, it wasn't that you, quote, came out. This to me was just a natural extension of all the things that you showed interest in as a young teen.
Right. It was the way you expressed yourself creatively. And it just became a creative extension of who you were, which was really neat to see. It's like you growing in another way as you creatively brought Felix to life. And Felix and you are, in many ways, just synonymous with each other now.
Yeah, the one thing I definitely would like to follow up on that is we did talk about this a little bit earlier, but I do remember that your initial reaction was a little skittish. I mean, it's still a fairly young fandom, but I did mention about the Lisa Ling documentary that you showed me and that made you really see the world of furry. So would you like to share a little bit more about that documentary?
Yes, I'm not sure I'd say it was skittish, but it's my initial impression. But it's more just it's like anything else. It's a learning curve. You need to learn and understand more about what this fandom was. And definitely with Lisa Ling having the This Is Life documentary on CNN, it was a great way to see that how the fandom worked and just get a better understanding of how remarkable these individuals are, like yourselves, that bring these characters to life.
Yeah, I would agree with Grace. I would definitely argue this premise that there was any kind of skittishness. I would argue, Felix, that you probably were worried that we would be skittish. And I think it was interesting in the Lisa Ling documentary on This Is Life, where I think a lot of individuals who take to joining the furry fandom, a lot of anxieties, people who have insecurities and things like that. And I would say it's fair that as a young teen, you had a lot of just insecurities about who you were. You went to a high school that was all about sports, and I think you going to an art and design university. I remember, that first summer when you went to pre-college, you said, I found my tribe, and so in a way, the furry fandom was another extension of you finding a tribe.
Mhm.
And, so for me, there was no skittishness about you wanting to, be a part of this. I think that the cool thing was that when there was the furry convention, that your first furry convention that you went to, it was so cool for me. Right, because I got to, the Marriott was just a few blocks away from my office, and if you remember, you were too young to get your own hotel room,
Yeah.
so I booked a hotel room for you for the weekend so you could go down to the convention, and so I met you there on that Friday, and here I was dressed in my business suit, and I remember standing in line and waiting to check in. I think you had gone to go get registered because you'd paid online or whatever, and so I was standing in line to get the keys to the hotel room or whatever. And there was another business guy. This is a Friday afternoon, so I don't know why this guy was he should have already been flying home for the weekend, but guy was checking into the hotel. He was wearing slacks and a sports jacket, and I guess he decided I was wearing a business suit so he could commiserate with me. And he said to me in front of the desk clerk, he said, what it's crazy, all these weirdos walking around this hotel. And so I just kind of casually said to him, I said, well, actually, I'm checking in my son to his hotel room. He's participating in the convention this weekend. So he kind of looked at me like, oh crap, I just stepped in it. And the hotel clerk, though, I'll never. This is one of the reasons why, and I'm not making a commercial plug for Marriott, but one of the things I love about the Marriott company is the desk clerk said, "Excuse me, sir, but our guests that are here this weekend in their with their furry costumes are some of our most loyal and valuable guests. They come every year, and we love them coming back every year. So if you don't want to stay here, we could find you some suitable accommodation somewhere else." And so to me, it completely disarmed him, and he apologized and everything. But so for me, when you say skittishness, there was nothing skittish about you wanting to be part of this. I just think it was a really cool way for you to find another extension of a tribe to belong to. And we all want to belong to places where we feel appreciated, respected, and included.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree with that. I think with a lot of furries, and you might agree with me here, Uno, is that for a lot of us, one thing that really, what really drives us with the furry fandom is finding people that we can connect and have similar interests to, and that's what really makes the furry fandom quite fascinating and special. Now, the one thing I definitely would like to, I guess this is my last question, and then Uno can jump in and ask her questions, is with the furry fandom is a very special fandom because unlike fandoms like Marvel, Star Wars, My Little Pony, you name it, the furry fandom doesn't have a single foundation that created the furry fandom. It was a lot of people with various interests of anthropomorphic animals creating this fandom to celebrate that love and that enjoyment, imagination, and creating anthropomorphic animals. But people definitely do question what makes a furry, and there's no single furry manifesto defining what is a furry and how do you become a furry. So it does make some people maybe a little bit, I guess, curious what does make a furry, and with some negative stigmas from the media, what would you tell parents about the furry fandom, and what would you say for them to get involved and not be worried about these negative stigmas?
Well, the one thing I would say is I believe the furry fandom is definitely an extension of your imagination and who you want to be as a person. And sometimes, with you being, my child, definitely it gave you, when you're Felix or when you're drawing Felix, you are showing a different side of your personality you may not always be as comfortable showing around other people. You definitely have a little more confidence, I'd say a little more swagger occasionally when you're in your Felix costume. So I'd encourage parents, when their children come to them with, hey, I want to create a fursona, or I want to go to a furry convention, to take an open mind, go themselves, go meet the individuals, and realize that imagination is a wonderful thing. And we should never, ever get too old that we lose that piece of us and that ability to imagine and to aspire to, follow our dreams. And I think having a fursona allows our children or ourselves to do that.
Yeah. I where Grace was going with this, it was where my head was as well. I go back to when you were like 2 years old, and so it's interesting. Lisa Ling talked about like how a lot of folks grew up with Disney, with, if you will, the animation, and the animated movies and things like that. And I remember being in my late 20s when you were born, and I had never been to Disney until after I was an adult and after your mom and I had been married. And but I remember taking you as a little boy, and probably one of the, if I think about it, one of the most impactful things that for me that we've always done together was the Figment ride. So Figment, here he is, and anthropomorphic character. But I love the little, his song. It's like one little spark of inspiration is at the heart of all creation, right? Right at the start of everything that's new, one little spark lights up for you. So it's like, so as parents, and I think sometimes as an adult, we can sometimes get wrapped up in our world, in business. And me, I travel the world for business. Sometimes it would be easy to get wrapped up in the things that we have to do, our responsibilities. But if we don't take the time just to support our kids around not only the things that they are inspired by, but also to be able to make sure that they can tap into their imagination. So for me, you creating, this world of furries and belonging to this world of furries was something that inspired me, because I could see you tapping into imagination, Mm-hmm. And the other thing I would say about, something, advice for other parents is that I think this is universal around the world. Parents just want a better life for their kids than that they had for themselves. But sometimes we think about that in monetary or in material ways, around, standard of living. But I would argue that, a parent's responsibility is to want a better life for their kids around how they can find inclusion, how they can find happiness, and where they can thrive. And to me, the cool thing about, the furry world is that it's a reflection of you, but it's also a reflection of some of the qualities that you aspire to be. So it's interesting where you have some people who can be extremely shy and awkward, but when they put their fursuit on, you know, that confidence, jumps out, and they, become, this, extremely bubbly, person. And for me, it's like, why wouldn't we want that for our children? So something that gives kids confidence and happiness. So those are some of the things that I would just wax poetic about as a parent of a furry.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. Thank you so much, you two, for answering my questions. Do you have any questions for my parents, Uno?
Yeah, so to kind of extend on the answers from the last question, an interesting question, I think, is have you seen any kind of changes in Felix after joining the fandom? So in terms of maybe confidence or just in general, really? I mean, yeah.
I would definitely say Felix's confidence, especially when Felix becomes Felix, definitely improves. I'd say it's allowed him to even create more and more characters and personas. It's allowed him to stretch his creativity, I think, in some really neat ways. And he's expanded his drawings to find ways to include Felix or insert Felix into his own travels or into things he does in his own life. So I think that's just really fascinating to see where Felix can go and to see the happiness and joy you see in Felix and realize that happiness and joy is within your child as well. So I'd say definitely I've seen some changes.
And well, in addition to confidence, the area where I feel like Felix has really expanded is his ability to empathize. So Felix has always been, even when he was a little boy, I think he always displayed an amount of empathy, but those were typically like outward cues of people expressing emotion, or if he could see somebody was sad or happy. As he joined and started doing more I guess furry creations for others and creating personas, he would really spend the time to tap in to think about, well, what's special about this persona, what makes this person tick, what do they aspire to be able to show through their persona. And so for me, that's something that I found extremely I know rewarding as a father, especially since Felix is aspiring to be a professional writer, and then he's got his art in terms of illustrating and photography, that he seeks the value in others. And I think that's something that the furry fandom is really cool, is that Felix, you mentioned this earlier, there's no standard rule of thumb. And that was one of the cool things for me to go to a furry convention, is that there are so many different styles and so many different creations, and everybody just appreciates everyone else. And so to me, if there's anything that could be gleaned out of the furry fandom that I'd love to like bottle up and, be able to share with the world, is this idea of, empathy and acceptance. And that's something that I've seen in Felix develop, by a factor of 10, since, he's really focused on some of the aspects in his life around the furry fandom.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think the one thing I've found from the furry fandom is just the level of acceptance that people show. When I was at the convention, it was wonderful. Nobody stopped to question or think about who's inside this persona. It was just wonderful. Everybody was welcoming and happy to see and interact with each other, and nobody was judging anybody. It was just absolutely fantastic. There was just so much joy that you could feel in the whole atmosphere.
Yeah, that's great, because I mean, definitely the level of acceptance within the fandom is just like, it's like no other fandom, to be honest. It's just most of the majority of furries are just so incredibly nice and just accepting of each other. So that's really good to hear as well.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was going to say a great example would be like the Star Wars fandom. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. There's so much like, if I think about like Star Wars fans, that, poor George Lucas and creators, they can do no right. because everybody, there's like this canonical idea people think like things have to be. And so I think that's a great example. And I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so I'm not cracking on Star Wars, but I'm saying that's an interesting juxtaposition to like something like the furry fandom, where, I would say, non-standard things are celebrated, quirky ideas are celebrated, as opposed to, oh, that doesn't fit in with kind of canon, or that, why would they ever do XYZ? You'd never, I personally, in the years now that I've been exposed to the furry fandom, I've never seen anyone criticize somebody for their ideas of how they express themselves through personas, or, or through their creations.
Yes, it's definitely one of the least judgmental fandoms, which is just one of the things that makes it such a brilliant fandom to be in. And to kind of, again, extend on that with one more question is, what's been your favorite experience within the fandom? Whether that's something that Felix has been a part of, or just a part of the fandom that you really enjoy. Yeah.
Well, to be honest, my favorite part of my furry experience, while I enjoyed going to the convention, my favorite part was when Felix came home from school and the fursona you had created for him had arrived, and the first time he put it on, that was my favorite part. It was really, really special and neat to watch Felix transform into Felix. It was fantastic.
So mine is more about, so I love being able to catch Felix off guard sometimes. It's kind of our playful banter. And when I asked him to create our holiday card this year,
this before.
I think
Yeah.
that kind of I think that kind of like took you by surprise, didn't it, son?
Oh yeah, no, it very much.
Like, but so, and you think about it, I mean, this past year was a horrible year for all of us, and your mom, Grace here, I mean, unfortunately, was diagnosed with cancer this last year. We didn't, because of everything being locked down, and because of, her illness and surgeries and treatment and everything, we didn't go anywhere. And typically one of the traditions of our holiday card is to have photos of, a photo of somewhere that we'd been that year for our vacation as a family together. And, so I got to thinking about it, and I said, one of the things I love about personas is that, your, at least how you create personas, and how you draw, is from a place of optimism, happiness, and warmth. And, so I thought, what better way to be able to share with our family about, happiness, optimism, and warmth, and as well to kind of be able to demonstrate some of your talents, So I love, so, Felix, he created my persona as well, Bogey. And so, so for me, that was him bringing Bogey to life, was something that I found incredibly humbling, number one. And I thought, what better way? I want my friends to see, this creation that, and Grace. So the reason why she's called Grace isn't because she's graceful. It's typically because she's the biggest klutz in the family. And so, so if you just think about those, I thought, hey, what better way to share warmth and happiness with our friends and family? And I think you would agree with this, is that the response from all the folks who received the holiday card this year, that, by and large, most of them were like, that was our favorite holiday card that we got this year. And, everybody was just so, just overwhelmingly positive. And granted, most people who got the card didn't know that they were, quote, furries. They just saw happiness, and saw something that was really cool, and it was a great collection. So that's been my most rewarding and favorite part of Felix's journey through the furry fandom.
Yeah, I still remember when he asked me to do the Christmas card, because back in my mind, it actually really made me appreciate the Christmas cards more after doing that, because I will, like I said earlier, I will admit that I wasn't the craziest with Christmas cards, and it actually in many ways was great for me, because as much as all of our family knew that I was a furry, I mean, for viewers, I paraded my fursuit in front of all my family and showed photos to my grandmother, but it really made me, because it really made me more comfortable with saying, "Hey, I'm a furry," or I draw cartoon animals, because, and in many ways it helped create this podcast, because this podcast would have not have happened if I went to a podcast class at my school and pitched to everyone in my major that, hey, do you want to hear about furries? So in many ways, I'm extremely happy that I did the Christmas cards, and thank you so much for helping, or for suggesting that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the highlight of what we've been involved with so far, son. So I appreciate you doing it, and I spend a lot of time each year. Right, this has been a holiday tradition for years, where I take the responsibility of creating the holiday cards, and so this was the best one yet. So to me, it's like, the question now is, are we going to put you on the hook for another one? Or are we going to do a photo this year? I don't know. But to me, this is so far out of the 20 years that you've been here on Earth. This has been my favorite holiday card so far.
Yeah, that's great to hear about. I love the story about the holiday card. Like, that's just amazing. Yeah, so thanks for sharing those. That's been really interesting to hear.
Do you guys have any last comments before signing off?
No, Uno, thank you for taking the time today, and appreciate you and Felix for inviting us in and letting us share some of our perspectives with you. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you for coming on as well. Like, that's great. This has been great to hear about.
It was very nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
Well, and hopefully at some point we'll get to meet in person.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right, take care.
Yeah, you too. Okay, so if you two want to introduce yourselves, who you are and your persona names.
Yes. Well, my persona name is Rage, and I'm a crow. So one of my favourite animals.
And I'm Monty.
A cat.
And I'm a cat.
So we're going to ask a few questions similarly to we did with Felix's parents. So the first question is, how should a parent react if their child becomes a furry? Just your kind of what you think is like the best reaction, or what you thought, or anything. It's very conversational. So
what we thought, I guess, is
Just pleased.
Yeah,
pleased.
Pleased. Yeah.
It's just very creative, isn't it? And anything creative has got to be good.
Yeah.
And I was quite impressed when you made your first one, when you appeared after 2 weeks in your bedroom.
Yeah.
And it was just, interesting to see what you'd made, and then the opportunity to wear it and show it off was a very positive thing. I thought it's good for, if you're a bit shy, it's a good way to get out there and socialise and, just be seen. And I can't see there's any negative side to it, really.
No, I can't.
Yeah, so it kind of is, we've pretty much kind of answered it really, but when did you begin to view the kind of fandom as a whole favourably? So like, kind of what did you think of the whole thing, not just me, but like the seeing other furries, and
just very colourful and exciting.
Yeah, interesting.
It's very sort of, it's a bit of a community, isn't it? And
it's funny.
We were saying before, weren't we, that I guess the furries have got a sort of, they're probably introverts with an extrovert inside that desperately wants to come out, but perhaps being a furry gives you that opportunity to sort of lose a bit of your inhibitions and just be who you really want to be, and a sort of true character probably comes out through your persona, I imagine.
Yeah, make more friends.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So like, how would you recommend other parents to kind of get involved, or not just get involved, but sort of, be supportive or whatever, really, just kind of, however they can kind of get involved?
Well, I just think if you're a parent and your child's doing something interesting and imaginative, you'd be foolish not to encourage it. And if you don't encourage it, they're going to do it anyway. So you might as well, embrace it and enjoy it for what it is. And it's fun to look at. It's obviously great if you're in there and getting out and about and meeting people. And can't see anything wrong with it at all,
Yeah.
really.
And so, because the furries obviously in the media, I mean, more recently it's been slightly better kind of representation. That's what I've noticed anyway. But especially a few years ago, like the media tried to kind of represent them in more of a negative way, or people would think, oh, it's something creepy or a bit weird or whatever. So how would you recommend kind of fighting against the negative stigmas and just kind of going against how they're represented in the media, or kind of your opinion on things that you've seen with furries in the media?
Well, I think you should just be who you want to be and not let other people's opinions change your mind.
Yeah, and usually they don't really understand.
Yeah, it's fear of the unknown.
Yeah, that's it. They don't really understand it, so that's why they often become negative.
Yeah. And I remember what you were saying earlier as well about when the furries were on. I can't remember what it was. It was
morning television, and they had two very sort of boring presenters who were very mainstream, and they had on 3 furries, and I think the presenters were trying to make the furries out to be something they weren't. And what came over very, very obviously to me was that the furries seemed articulate and intelligent and interesting, and the 2 TV presenters just looked like a couple of idiots, really. And it kind of had the reverse effect of what I think they were trying to do. And it just made furries have a much more higher profile and a more positive profile, as far as I could see. They just seemed very fun and intelligent people to be around, and you just thought, well, the presenters are the stupid ones here, and the idiots.
Yeah, I think that happens quite a lot when furries are like being represented in the media. They're expecting something really weird, or like, this is so creepy, we'll get loads of interest because of how weird it is, but actually it's the presenters that end up being the ones who look stupid. So that's kind of my questions. So I think Felix has got a couple more to ask as well.
Hello. So
nice to meet you, by the way.
Nice to meet you. So I have 2 questions. So my first question is, what's been your favorite experience from the furry fandom? Is it something that your daughter Uno has done, or is it something more broader that you've seen with the furry fandom?
I think with Susie, it's when she first started, because she makes all her own costumes, I was always quite proud if somebody said, oh, where did she get her head from? And I was able to say, well, she made it herself. And then I sort of think, well, because I'm her mother by association, I can take some of the like praise as well. And so it's always really nice when people appreciate.
Generally they do, don't they?
And it's like, it creates sort of happiness, and people might be just going about their boring, mundane life, and then they'll see a bunch of furries, and it suddenly brightens people's days. You can just tell that some people are, got the miserable face on the bus, and then some furries walk past, and suddenly that few seconds has made their life a bit brighter. And to me, that's a very nice thing to be able to do, and it's sort of a form of entertainment, but a very natural, sort of unexpected entertainment that makes people's day, I suppose.
Okay.
Yep. And then I guess my second question would be, have you seen any changes from Susie or Uno after joining the fandom? Like, has she become more confident? What have you seen from her since joining the fandom?
She's
still as weird as ever.
Definitely more confident. And more mature, really. And
well, I don't know about that.
Well, I'm being kind. And I think being a furry, you probably maintain a certain light-hearted take on life, and
that's not serious.
You don't let life sort of rubbish drag you down. You just get on with it, and your persona is kind of the happy you that you try and be most of the time. And I guess because Susie's been making costumes for a while now, she's developed with her creativity, and as she said to me before, she no longer feels she has to necessarily be in her persona to be out and about with furries. She can be in her sort of be herself, but then be with the people that she enjoys being with, and feel more confident. And I think initially when she first started going out there as a furry, she probably needed that to get that inhibition out of the way, and now she can do it because having a persona is might ease the way into being a sociable sort of individual. It's a positive. I can only see it as a positive thing, especially for kids that might be a bit shy, or they might have a few issues, maybe the way they look or whatever, and to be able to be a furry gives them that sort of confidence to just go out there and be who they want to be. So I think that's a good thing.
Well, thank you so much for answering my questions.
That's all right.
Okay.
I think that's all of them. Thank you as well for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Take care, guys.
Okay.
Okay. Bye.
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 All right. Those were some really fascinating interviews.
Yeah, this episode has been great. So I really hope everyone enjoyed this, and I hope that everyone found it as interesting as we found to make.
Yeah. I just found it really interesting, especially this hearing it from my own parents, given that I'm currently living with both of them at the moment this summer. And it's just really interesting when you asking these questions to them.
Yeah, because these are really kind of, well, what I was just thinking was kind of that they're questions that you really don't think to ask. Because I kind of know how my parents viewed the fandom because of their own reactions, but I'd really never thought to actually ask them about it. So it's kind of interesting to actually hear fully their kind of perspective on it. So that's been really good. And I hope it's been really good to listen to as well.
Yeah, I hope it's been informal and if not, at least very much entertaining to hear our parents and come talk to us about furries.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up the episode for today.
Thank you so much for everyone who has tuned in.
Yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Really, really excited to hear how many people are tuning in already and from how far away, and like how people from all over the world already have been interested in the podcast. That is just amazing to hear. So what I would like to say, if anyone would like to check us out on Instagram, we do have an Instagram. It's Fluff It Podcast. We also have a YouTube and a Spotify, which are also the same name, Fluff It Podcast. So hopefully easy enough to find. So if you do enjoy the podcast, feel free to check us out there. We really appreciate any of the follows, comments, likes, anything like that. We really, really appreciate it. So thank you all.
Yeah, it's been a blast reading everyone's comments about the first episode, and we very much cherish each and every comment we receive from you guys. It's awesome to hear the support and excitement that you guys have about this podcast. And I would like to also make another announcement so we are going to be we are currently constructing a Patreon page to, if anyone wants to help us even further with making sure this podcast continues to grow and expand, we very much appreciate everyone who supports us in any way, from support, from like following to sharing this podcast to friends and family. And we're hoping to get this Patreon page up by this episode, but may not be the case. We will keep everyone tuned on Instagram when it will be up. But thank you so much, everyone who has tuned in and listened to this entire episode. Please let us know how you thought of this episode and what you found fascinating from this hearing from our parents.
Yeah, thanks again for tuning in, and we would absolutely love to hear what you think. And if you have any future ideas for us or just anything you want to say about the podcast, that would be amazing to hear. I've had a few messages already saying that people enjoyed it, so that's just amazing to hear. And yeah, again, I hope everyone enjoyed it, and we hope to see you all very soon.
Yep. And until the next episode, stay fluffy and take care, everyone.